as Nick Harris, DallasCowboys.com, joins you now here on the Fan. Good afternoon, sir. How the heck are you?
Doing pretty good. How are we doing, fellas?
We're doing great. You want to bite at that apple there with the camp cupcakes going on here in tackle football land? Do you think it's a good idea, or should we be following Andy Reid's lead?
I missed that first part. What was happening with Andy Reid?
He's got the supposedly has the toughest practices in all of football.
Oh yeah, I guess that's tough to quantify, right? Mike McCarthy would say the same thing.
Okay, you think the Cowboys have a pretty tough practice then?
I would say they do. You know, it's pretty competitive. You know, we didn't see the tension boil over until the very last practice, though. So I guess if you wanted to quantify it in that terms, then Andy Reid probably beat him with Kelsey throwing hands on the first day.
Yeah, it was pretty impressive as well. Now, do we know going into Cowboys Seahawks how many starters Seattle plans to play?
Yeah, that's still undecided. Pete Carroll actually said in a press conference this week that, you know, he's toying with the idea. If I had to guess, this is just purely off me guessing, I would say we probably see 1 to 2 series from Geno Smith in the starting offense. And then as far as the starting defense, I wouldn't expect to see none of the big names. I would expect to see Kobe Bryant, though, and that's a guy who's going to get a lot of play this year in the Seattle defense, playing at both safety and at corner. But on the offensive side, you could definitely expect to see Jackson Smith and Jigba, a former Rockwall product, a first-round pick, wide receiver at Seattle. I think he'll get quite a bit of run as he did last week against Minnesota.
Who's going to be positioned that maybe, you know, did or didn't have a good game last week that could really use one this week?
Yeah, not necessarily that Mozzie Smith had a poor game last week, but I think he has a really intriguing opportunity in front of him this week. He's going up against his college teammate, Olu Oluwatimi, who is a fifth-round pick at center for the Seattle Seahawks. And being able to go up against him one-on-one, I think that's going to give him a really interesting opportunity going into this one.
What about camp battles right now? It seems like tight ends become pretty interesting. I know last week we talked about Brooks and Simi Fehoko. What position battles do you have your eye on?
Yeah, still looking at this running back situation. We talked to Mike McCarthy. I think, you know, you could expect to see the rotation maybe moved around a little bit as far as who comes in when. And then as far as the tight end group, yeah, the depth of that group is getting really interesting all of a sudden. You got a guy, John Stevens Jr., who came in as an undrafted free agent, who all of a sudden is doing some great work both in the receiving game and as a blocking tight end. And I think in the depth of that room, things are really starting to get interesting.
Now, there's no way Peyton Hendershot – I mean, is Peyton Hendershot, like, sort of on the chopping block a little bit? I mean, is there a chance that he's not on this team? Maybe they could get some value for him. Maybe they could trade him or something. But what's the deal with him?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting predicament. I think it depends on who you look at to have more upside, whether that be Sean McEwen or Peyton Hendershot, and who has more left in their tank and more left in their toolbox to open up in their careers. You know, I think if you want a receiving tight end to take that last spot, then, you know, you probably keep McEwen on the roster, and then you kind of look at John Stevens Jr. and Peyton Hendershot, both of them a receiving type of tight end that definitely focuses on that part of their game a little bit more. And then you ask yourself the question, which one has more upside in that predicament as well? So I think that's going to be an interesting conversation down the line with tight end coach Linda Wells and the rest of the offensive staff.
It's Nick Harris, DallasCowboys.com with us. Of the young offensive linemen, who has the best chance of being somebody here in a year, 2, 3?
Yeah, I would say Austin Richards. You know, I've really liked what I've seen from him, not only during training camp, but, you know, he kind of got thrown into the fire against Jacksonville. He didn't expect to start at left tackle going in, but whenever Chuma Edoga went down with an injury on the last padded practice before Jacksonville, he had to step in and take that starting role. He did a great job with it. He had a couple of lapses, but it was nothing you didn't want to see from a guy in his preseason debut. And then as the game went on, he slid into left guard and got some really good work there as well. So, you know, I'm excited to see what he can do, not only in the rest of the preseason, but going forward in his career. I think he has a really interesting process going on right now, but I don't really want to cheat the process with him. I want to get him acclimated, get him going, whether that be at left tackle or at left guard, whichever one he's more comfortable with, and get him going in that predicament.
Are you buying into the TJ Bass love?
I am. I really like what he's put together during camp. You know, he comes from a really strong offensive line pedigree. The guy that recruited him in college at Oregon, offensive line coach Alex Mirabal. He's like a 5'4" short Latin guy who's now at Miami with Mario Cristobal, but he's the best offensive line coach in the country in my book. And you can really see those traits that he emphasizes with the lower half and getting that initial push. You can see that in TJ Bass and the learning points that he's been able to pick up off of him. So, you know, I am buying into the hype. I think he's definitely going to stick around here for a while.
Any injury news? What about a guy like Junior Fehoko who wasn't able to go last week?
Yeah, Junior Fehoko, I think I expect him to go this week. Definitely get his first preseason action. That was a little bit of a late surprise to, I think, everyone that Fehoko wasn't able to go last week. Ronald Jones, I would not expect to see him this week. And as far as everyone else, the Chuma Edoga would not expect to see him this week either. But, pretty much everybody else, unless I'm forgetting someone off the top of my head, should be good to go.
What did you think about the camp fights the last day there? I mean, we had a little bit of a disagreement on our show. I don't know if you think it was a good thing, a bad thing, you're indifferent to it. What were your thoughts?
I think there were good things and there were bad things. The intensity, I think, is the good part. You want to see offensive line guys defending offensive line guys, and the same goes for the defensive line. And, that physicality, you especially love to see it in the trenches. And I love, just having that kind of feistiness. But whenever you're throwing hands at helmets, you sacrifice, potentially breaking a hand or, breaking a finger. And when it's a guy like Micah Parsons, man, that would just be a huge blow and an unnecessary blow to a season. So I think there are good parts of it, but there are also bad parts.
Mike McCarthy was talking about DeMarcus Lawrence having just a phenomenal camp. Have you felt the same way? Because, when not being there, you don't hear too much about it. But what have you seen from Tank?
Yeah, this defense is just so crowded that you sometimes forget about an impact that a player like Tank Lawrence can make. And he's been doing that here at this camp, in my opinion. He's all over the place. He looks extremely healthy. He says this is the healthiest he's felt in a long time. And Mike McCarthy talked about in the press conference the GPS exertion of energy resources that they have available to them. And he said that DeMarcus Lawrence's numbers are off the chart compared to the first three training camps that he's had with D-Law. So, if the numbers are saying it, man, then I'm ready to see what that motor looks like on the field in week one.
And Deron Bland looked like the same player as last year, no sophomore step back kind of deal?
I would not say he looks the same as he did last year. I would say he's taken a step further. I think he's starting to really solidify that nickel role. I think he's going to have a big role this season, just as he did last year whenever injuries struck. I'm really excited for the matchup he has this week against Jackson Smith and Jigba. I think that's going to be a really interesting one for him. If Jackson lines up in the slot, then I think that'll be a really good battle for him going into the season.
Oh, yeah.
Final question, Nick. If the apparel company Skechers made a pair of cleats for the sport you were playing, would you want to wear them?
I'm sorry, I can't do that. For me personally, no. I would say no. I'll sacrifice foot pain later in life for a little bit of swag, right?
England captain and Bayern Munich star Harry Kane has signed a lifetime global deal with Skechers. You can get the new Skechers soccer cleats for $249, Nick.
Really? Well, hold on. What's that price tag that he's getting, though? Now, if there's a bag coming to me, I'll wear the Skechers pleasingly.
It's a lifetime deal. That's probably a fatty boomba.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think I need.
I have to. I do need to be compensated for the embarrassment of wearing the Skechers, but I'm with you. There is a number for that, Nick. We appreciate your time, man. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the game.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.